Hello, I am Federico Magni, a PhD candidate in management at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. I am currently in my fifth year of PhD and I am expecting to graduate in the summer of 2021. In this video, I will share with you my research program and then I will talk about my job market paper. My research program lays at the intersection of management, arts, and artificial intelligence. In my first dissertation essay, which is also my job market paper, I study creativity evaluation and how the producer identity as artificial intelligence or a human impacts such evaluations. In my dissertation essay number 2, I also study artificial intelligence in organizations. In particular, I study how using AI in recruiting will impact job applicants' perception of the organization. The rest of my research efforts are grouped into 3 main categories. The first area is creativity, on which I am also writing my third dissertation essay, in which I study team error management and creativity. The second is diversity, mostly focusing on generational differences at work. And the third area of interest is learning. So, moving to my job market paper, in my job market paper, I study how creativity evaluations are impacted by the identity of the producer as human or artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has been previously coupled with the performance of algorithmic tasks. Yet in recent times, it has been more common for artificial intelligence to be involved with tasks that can be defined creative, such as creating paintings, poetry, or music. And these tasks are not only limited to the arts world, but for example, AI has also been used for creating new compounds for drugs or also for coming up with business ideas for startups. Yet, even if AI is now involved in creativity, we still don't know how people judge the creativity of artificial intelligence. And I try to answer this question with this study. So creativity is defined as the generation of novel and useful ideas and products. And the bulk of the creativity literature has focused on the idea generation stage. Yet, in recent times, more focus has been put on the stage of creativity evaluation. And in particular because if ideas are not deemed to be creative, then they will not be supported and resources will not be allocated into their development. And so they will likely die out and never see the light of day. So creativity evaluation is important. Yet people are not very good at evaluating creativity because creativity is very hard to pinpoint. In particular, we don't know how people are biased in evaluating the creativity of artificial intelligence. And to address this question, I rely on a theoretical framework of lay theories or folk theories, which are people's fundamental understanding about how the world works and how events and occurrences around them operate. Lay theories are particularly important when people have to assess events and occurrences that are not easily explainable or that are not accessible with objective criteria. And of course, this is the case of creativity. So in particular, I want to understand which lay theories people use in evaluating creativity, and in particular when they evaluate the creativity of AI. The first step is understanding whether people have a producer identity bias. So we know that people assess the behaviors of humanoid agents in a very similar way as they assess the behavior of humans, as long as these humanoid agents display social cues. Yet, at the same time, people are aware that there are differences between human agents and artificial agents. In particular, that the latter cannot feel empathy or emotions, and that they lack superordinate intentionality, meaning that they do not have ultimate or more fundamental reasons for their action. Given that empathy and intentionality are considered critical for creativity, we argue that people will discount the creativity of artificial intelligence, in particular, having a bias related to the producer identity. This is our hypothesis 1, in which we posit that the identity of the producer as AI will lead people to evaluate the creativity of a production as lower as compared to the producer identity as human. We next try to understand how this effect works. And for this, we rely on the effort heuristic. The effort heuristic posits that people perceive that humans exert more effort when they perform a specific task as compared to machines performing the very same task. And at the same time, people also assign more value to production that is perceived to have required more effort. So, putting together these two things, we know that people evaluate the production made by humans as more valuable than the production made by machines because they perceive higher effort that has been put by human agents into this production. And this also applies to creativity and to creative value. So our second hypothesis is that effort perceptions mediate the effect hypothesized in hypothesis 1. We also take into account implicit theories of creativity, because of course it would be incomplete to study lay theories of people and their creativity evaluation without studying also how people think about creativity itself. The implicit theory of creativity is someone's belief that creativity is a fixed skill that cannot be improved, or rather an incremental skill that can be enhanced with learning and training and effort. So we believe that people's understanding of creativity will also influence their creativity evaluations. In particular, people tend to think that artificial intelligence cannot improve itself because it is just a machine. So if people already have a fixed implicit theory of creativity, that is, if they believe that creativity is a fixed skill that cannot be changed, then they will not really be bothered much by the fact that AI is perceived to not be able to self-improve. On the other hand, if people have a more incremental implicit theory of creativity, they will tend to discount AI creativity more due to the perceived inability of AI to self-improve. So our hypothesis 3 is that the more an evaluator has a fixed implicit theory of creativity, the weaker the effect, both direct and indirect, of the producer identity will be on creativity evaluation. Finally, we also consider the domain of production as an interesting nuance, and in particular we pit artistic creativity against organizational creativity. Creativity is often associated with production in artistic domains, but what we focus on as management scholars is organizational creativity. And the main difference between the two is the focus on usefulness, which is central in the definition of organizational creativity that I mentioned before, but it's not really key for artistic creativity. Of course, usefulness is related to economic value, and this economic value gives some kind of objective way to understand creativity in organizations and in business. But this is lacking in the domain of arts, and so assessing creativity in the artistic domain is more ambiguous. And this higher ambiguity leads people to rely more on folk theories, because they cannot more easily and objectively assess and understand creativity. For this reason, we expect the effects that we hypothesized before to be stronger in the artistic domain than in the business domain. So when a production is framed as a production for the arts, the effects of the producer identity bias should be stronger than when a production is framed as in the realm of business. So here I summarize the theoretical model. You can see the baseline effect that we hypothesize about the producer identity impacting creativity evaluation, and then the mediation of perceived effort. The moderation of implicit theory of creativity, so the stronger one's fixed implicit theory of creativity, the weaker the relationships should be. And finally, the effect of domain of production, so all of these hypothesized relationships should be stronger in the domain of arts than in the domain of business. To test this hypothesis, we ran 4 experimental studies with different designs, and I will quickly go through them and show you the results. In study 1, we adopted a within-person design, and we did find support for the hypothesis 1 that people evaluate the creativity of paintings, in this case, that have been assigned to artificial intelligence as lower compared to the creativity of paintings that are described as produced by humans. In study 2, we used the same evaluation target, Australian Aboriginal paintings, But we changed the design to a between-person design. And we still found support for our hypothesis 1, in that people who were in the human condition, so who were told that the paintings were created by a human, rated the paintings as more creative than people in the AI condition, that is, people who were told that the paintings were created by AI. The same was true for effort perceptions, and effort actually mediated the relationship between producer identity and creativity evaluation consistent with our hypothesis. We also found support for hypothesis 3, in that the implicit theory of creativity moderated the direct and indirect effects, consistent with our hypothesis again. We replicated the same design in study 3, changing the evaluation target, so instead of paintings we used advertisement posters, and quite surprisingly we did not find most of the effects replicating. In particular, we did not find the baseline effect, and we also did not find the moderation by implicit theory of creativity, even if we still found differences in perceptions of effort. So, taking together study 2 and study 3, we already have some indirect support for hypothesis 4, in that the domain of production, which is more artistic for the paintings and more business for the advertisements posters, seems to affect the strength of the relationships, in particular showing that the relationships are stronger in the arts. And in study 4, we directly test this hypothesis. In study 4, we use piano music as an evaluation target, and we have a 2x2 design in which people are assigned to either AI or human, and also to either an arts or a business condition, changing the domain of production. In study 4, we found again support for hypothesis 1 and 2, so that the producer identity impacted creativity evaluations, and this also operated through effort, as in the other studies. We also found support for the moderation of implicit theory of creativity, but only on the indirect relationship, not on the direct one. Finally, we did find an effect of domain on these relationships. In particular, the mediated moderation in hypothesis 3b was found to be significant in the arts domain, but not significant in the business domain, as you can see in the graphs. So the summary of results shows the relationships that are significant and is consistent with the results I just presented. Summing up, the main findings of this paper is that people generally have a producer identity bias and they discount the creativity of artificial intelligence. We also found that this producer identity bias operates through perceptions of effort, in that people perceive humans to exert more effort into their production, and this is translated into higher perceptions of creative value of the production. Yet, quite interestingly, we found that this bias is not ubiquitous, and in particular, it depends on both internal and external factors to the evaluator. Internal factors of the evaluator include the evaluator's implicit theory of creativity, and external factors include the domain of production as arts or business. With this study, we contribute to several literatures, including the creativity evaluation literature, which previously has been silent on biases related to the identity of the producer as human or non-human. We also contribute to folk psychology, in that previously folk theory of humanoid behavior had not been applied to creativity evaluations. And we also more generally and broadly contribute to the AI-human interaction literature, in particular because the human perspective is kind of under-researched in this literature, as most of the studies focus on the artificial intelligence side and on how to make AI better for humans, but they do not really study how humans interpret the behaviors and outputs of artificial intelligence, and in particular not in the context of creativity. So this is all I have for today. I'm happy to have your questions. You can see my email address there. So thanks for the attention.